Hey, welcome to Quick Take. I'm your host, Susie Tomanchuk, along with James Capps. How are you, James?
I am so
You're
excited to
not
be here
ready.
and not ready whatsoever. But we hit the
Okay,
button
let's
and
keep
away
going.
we go.
Yeah, we don't like to miss those moments of inauthenticity. We want to be inauthentic right here in front of everyone.
Is that like
That's not the
wait, is that
right
like a full
word.
spectrum? Like that it's
That's right.
super authentic. I mean, it's so unauthentic, it's real.
We're being very vulnerable right now. um,
Yes.
so, what I want to talk about today, what we should talk about today is, should I stay or should I go now? And this came up for me because I have
Who's
a
that? Is
client.
that a song?
It is.
I
It's
forget who sings that. Who is it?
Clash.
Ah, it's the Clash.
Ah, that's
Uh
right.
no,
You
that would
knew.
be that would be Flash. But
Oh, it's Flash. Is that
well,
really?
that's Flash Gordon that you were just doing
Oh,
there.
that's
Yeah.
right.
So
You know what? I need to stay on. I got to stay on task,
Sand
or
target,
people
sand
are going to
target. Or
get to
make it.
know me behind the scenes, and we don't want that to happen. So I had a client. She was a executive in an
Mm-hmm.
organization that I'm trying to think about how to say this without giving too much
Give it
information.
away.
So
Yeah.
she led a whole department of people, and they asked me to coach her because she was just not. Everybody under her was not really jiving with her, not really listening
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
her. And I was talking to her, and she's like, "I don't really know why people don't like me. They don't trust me. I don't know what's going on." And there was such a disconnect. And I kept thinking, there she needs to make a decision to move on. It's
Right.
just not the right fit. And she was really
Mm-hmm.
struggling with it because she just wanted so badly to make it work. And she so badly wanted to be successful. And so she was just month after month,
Right.
just
Right.
struggling around it. So I thought maybe if that's a good example or not, around when is that time to make the decision to stay or go?
Yeah. It is a challenging one, and I think that so often when I talk to people about career changes and really just trying to figure out if they're going to get what they want out of their career, it's how do I look at it objectively? And I think that's the
Mm-hmm.
real ask: is what do I need to ask myself? How do I need to
Yeah.
look at the situation? Because you do, everybody gets, a lot of us get emotionally involved in our careers. We spend a lot of time thinking about it. We spend a lot of time with our coworkers. And so to be objective and have the
Mm-hmm.
right mindset when you're kind of thinking about it is really challenging.
Yeah, I think that's especially important when it becomes a really difficult situation around you, because
Hmm.
you tend to get a scarcity mindset where you're not
Mm.
thinking clearly anyway. And so,
Yep.
like you
Yep.
said, zooming out or getting some clarity, getting some objectivity is super important, because you could
Yep.
make good and bad decisions and
Totally
not know
agree.
it.
Yeah. And I think that, certainly when things are not going well, you do tend to start to ask yourself those questions. But at any point in your career, no different than doing some sort of career assessment at the beginning of your resetting your goals. At the beginning of the year, you should evaluate: is this my last year here? Has this run its course?
Yeah.
And have those conversations with yourself. So you don't want to wait until there's a layoff on the horizon, or you had a lousy
Mm-hmm.
performance appraisal. You should always look. I think you and I know you can wake up one day having been somewhere for 12 years and have no idea how it happened. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think it's just so important that you evaluate that.
Yeah. And you also don't want to make very quick decisions. I remember for me, I was kind of getting to the end of a career, and then a very
Hmm.
specific situation happened that was highly
Hmm.
emotional for me, where some people turned their backs on me, and I went
Right.
in the next day and I resigned because I was so
Yeah.
mad. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
luckily I worked for a boss that said, "I'm not going to accept your resignation until Monday.
Hmm.
So take the weekend." And on Monday,
Right.
I decided to stay. So luckily, I had somebody that allowed me to
Yep.
at least make the decision objectively. I ended up
Yep.
leaving after a few weeks, but
But
that can get in
yep.
our way.
Yeah. And I think, that I'll jump in, and, I think the first thing that I think people should do is really evaluate the cost, first and foremost, the cost of staying, right? There's
Yeah.
the tenure tax, I think, is what it's called in higher education. And there's just a lot of different ways to look at what a company can do for you to stay. I think of there's two leaders we talk a lot about Jack Welch and with GE, obviously, and Marissa Meyer, who is at Google. She, Marissa started uh, really at a lower level in that company and worked her way up. And so her, the ideal situation for her was that she was allowed to spend time at that company. That loyalty was rewarded with, ultimately a very senior role. Whereas Jack Welch, it was a little different. He was all about short-term goals, and so you
Hmm.
are not rewarded for your tenure. It was more about what have you
Mm-hmm.
done for me this quarter, and so you need to look very effectively and
Mm-hmm.
very objectively at what the company rewards you with for your tenure. And in many cases, all it really is more hours and a little bit of money. And so it's important for you to understand what the current employer is offering you for that long-term tenure.
Are you saying that if there's not a high value there for you, that should be the first decision point to leaving?
I think there's a good Forbes article I was reading the other day, and I think it was called "When Tenure's Not Enough." And
Hmm.
what is the executives, or not tenure? What is when loyalty is not enough? When your loyalty is not enough to keep your tenure moving. And I think it's really the evolving nature of how the C-suite and the executive leadership was treated, and that ultimately that you need to evaluate how it's going to be rewarded.
Yeah. And maybe also can the reward be beyond what we that comes to mind automatically our title and compensation? I mean, reward can be some other intangibles or not intangibles, tangible things like development and feeling
Well, it can be
productive and
anything. It can be
yeah.
anything. I mean,
Okay.
your ideal situation could be flexibility. I mean,
Yeah.
so it isn't really about, the classics. But I do think that if you are sitting at the beginning of the year and you are doing a sort of a self-assessment, you have to think about what you want in your career and
Yep.
whether or not you're going to be able to get that at your current company, and whether they reward if you stay there, you're staying there, will you get those things? And I
Yeah.
think that's the first question to ask is, what happens if I stay?
Yeah, and what I like about that is getting that clarity from time to time, even if you're not even thinking about leaving, it
Mm-hmm.
gives you that you've kind of thought it through if
Yep.
it is
Yep.
or if it's not. I like that a lot because it kind of helps you understand where you are on the map.
Well, and I think the second piece of advice, which is just like that, is okay. So I've done the self assessment. I've kind of checked out what's going on here. Can I then do something about that to create an opportunity here? Because maybe the company, your role, your department, your organizational structure isn't really going to reward your loyalty. Maybe looking at as a growth mindset where you can do things within the company that will get you to where you want to be. So I think we have talked about job crafting. We have talked about how
Mhm.
you can start to evolve things to make your career a little more in line with what you want. And I think that I know I worked with an executive who was working at a company and was struggling, and then he decided that he knew that he wanted to be part of more of innovation, and so he stood up an innovation lab. So the company wasn't going to get into that space within his organization. He decided that he could create that through working with his leadership team and saying, "Hey, I want what I will really get me going is to be part of this lab." So he took the initiative and took the growth mindset and created the opportunity.
Yeah, it's having that entrepreneurial spirit within
Mindset.
an
Yep. Yep.
organization. Yeah.
Yep.
Entrepreneurship as they call it.
Yep.
Yes.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Yeah. And also I also like your idea that you always say that your default is always me, say yes
Yep.
to any opportunity. So
Hmm.
even having that as an additional, if you're not clear of where you want to go, be have a growth mindset and be a little bit
Yep.
uncomfortable and say yes before you're ready.
Right. Right. And then the third thing I want to talk about is what you have decided to go, right? And then
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
And I was literally talking to a consultant the other day that his company is specifically designed to help the executive craft his exit plan
Hmm.
His reputation management and exit interview coaching.
Huh.
So what they're
Interesting.
doing, the value of this is to ensure that as you leave, you're leaving on top no matter what.
Yeah.
Even if your numbers are down, even if you're going through some sales slumps, technology slumps, maybe you've had some sort of product recall that you're going to get blamed for, you can still manage it. And so
Yeah.
what this firm is doing and this consultancy and what I'm suggesting is that once you make the decision that you are done, be thoughtful on how you go. Because
Hmm.
at the end of the day, we all know it's a small world, and so many of us have crossed paths with so many of the others
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
we've worked with. I always tell people who have worked for me that I'll probably work for them someday, and I'm completely fine with that. That it's just the nature of the beast. And so, going out effectively and in a thoughtful manner cannot be understated.
Yeah. Red carpet. I've worked for a company that says red carpet in, red carpet out.
Oh,
Also,
brilliant! Love that.
mindset. Yeah, mindset around that as an internal as well,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, yeah. Boy, I like that a
Is
lot. But I think that's just a great way to think about it because so many times we start looking at our next opportunity or the tragedy of us being forced to go.
yeah.
But that time changing your point of view, I think is critical.
Yeah. All right. So what are the three?
First take a look at the tenure tax. Evaluate what is the cost of you staying. Do I am I going to get what I need by staying here, and do I need to consider going? And if you do feel like you got some things going for you, try job crafting. Try to create a situation where you can use the growth mindset to find that same track that you
Mm-hmm.
want to see elsewhere. Maybe you can find it where you are. And then, as you so well said, Susie, red carpet in, red carpet out. Craft your exit. Make sure that you do it. If you decide you need to do it in a way that is a very positive and ensure that it only builds your reputation in your career.
Yeah. Such an important thing to think about because usually we don't take the time to really
We
get our
don't.
mindset right.
Yeah, and I think about I talk to a lot of our friends that are in consultancies and in those shops where you're there for 9 months or 6 months and then you leave. The exit is very important because
Mm-hmm.
the companies spend millions of dollars with your consultancy, and if you walk away with a half finished 3-ring binder and a half eaten sandwich, your reputation isn't going to be such that they'll bring you back or
Yeah.
hire you again. And so that exit, you got to think it through.
So true. So valuable. Thank you, James.
Good stuff.